recording system next to the bed, and somehow we just never get around to it. And I'm not like that. I'm not a procrastinator. If I put my mind to something, I'm on it, But for some reason, we just have never followed through with this. I don't know why. I think we just need. You're about the 50th person that's asked me to do that.
Huh.
So because at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not awake anyway, and you don't have the ability to record all night long and watch yourself. But I've had lots and lots of people report. Even in when I was a scoutmaster, we'd be out in the woods with 18 boys and sleeping in separate tents, and they say, you talked all night last night.
Wow. I was gonna say, as far as the species, do you know if they're still around or were they extinct?
That's a good question. I do know that they were space travelers because we came from another planet to the planet where I resided in the book. And the reason we were there is the abilities of this race to be empathic. That is to say, to pick up on the true thoughts and be able to communicate telepathically with other races. And we were used as forward scouts and diplomats for planets that wanted to be mined by a much more aggressive race, that we were conscripts. When the movie Avatar came out, I went, wow, that is so along the lines of what went on. We were not 12 feet tall, we were 7 feet tall, a few more vertebrae in the neck and the back, and 6 fingers and toes, and 2 rows of teeth, and 2 sets of vocal cords. But, other than that, the story's very close. That we were conscribed or conscripted to go to this planet and work with the indigenous people to facilitate mining their raw materials. And of course, they got into a squabble with another race that came there to get the same wealth, and they ended up fighting it out. And believe it or not, the planet facilitated their mutual destruction. So they went home with their tail between their legs, and rather than us returning to our home world, which we had now been gone from most of our lives, we just stayed on this one planet with the indigenous people. And as I said in the book, I know my house very well. I know the patio that we had that overlooked the fjord, and the sunsets and sunrises were spectacular. And I went out one afternoon to enjoy the view, and I woke up in the body of a 9-year-old boy.
Wow, it's amazing. That species actually sounds to me a little bit like, I think they call them the tall whites.
Well, except the skin was golden. It was not white. It was really like almost oriental in its color, just light golden. In fact, the female species, the skin, the organ of skin, was so sensitive to the true intentions of others, that it would actually sparkle with the energy from another being as it washed over the skin. And really, really sensitive, some of the females would wear gloves and sleeves in order to protect themselves from, the harmful intentions of others.
From the perverts?
Yeah.
But I wasn't there, Ramon.
From the New Yorkers.
Just kidding, just kidding.
So I guess those kind of girls you can't invite to a bar, huh?
Only if your intentions are pure.
No.
Not at most bars I go to. Yeah, Tom, you were gonna ask a question?
Well, yeah, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to. One of the things that you're most well known for is that the inner. Well, one of the things actually that first tipped me off to you in the first place was the Inner Earth expedition that you've been working on. What's going on with that? Anything new, or are things just still plodding along?
Well, still plodding along. I became part of the expedition team in 2005. I joined the team to help build the gyroscope system, which we were going to plot the curvature of the Earth and try to discover the oceanic depression, which is an ancient maritime legend of a place where sea level is not sea level. It's sort of where the ocean bowls down in like a giant valley, 100 or 200 miles across. And ancient maritime records, logs, and manifests and records that showed ships sailing from the old world to the new world. They used to sail in parallel, sometimes several in a line, for a couple reasons. One, security, so they keep each other in line in case they broke a mast or were attacked by pirates or something happened, somebody got sick. But also they sailed about 7 miles apart, so they wouldn't collide into each other should they run into a fog bank or something like that. But the logs record that even from the crow's nest, sometimes the other ship would disappear for several days at a time, even though they're sailing by sextant on course, and then suddenly come up out of the valley like magic and be right on course next to them again. Very, very strange effects. So I spoke to several retired Navy people, submarine people, and one retired admiral. And he said, oh, yes, I'm familiar with that. This is a place where we theorize that gravity is very intense inside the Earth, and it pulls the ocean down lower than it does elsewhere, and it just changes the shape of the ocean. And I said, well, have you ever given the thought to the idea that maybe that might be a place where the gravity is low, and the gravity surrounding that area is actually pulling the ocean away from that spot, sort of like the moon does, tugs on the ocean and moves it slightly around the Earth in a tidal sort of stretching tidal gravity movement. And he paused for a moment. He said, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe they are areas in the Earth where the gravity's low. Now, if that's the case, it supports the idea that gravity does not center in the core of the Earth, but rather in the crest of the Earth. So that was the team that I was on, was to map that curvature and try to discover the oceanic depression. Then in 2006, I went to the ECETI conference for the first time, and this incredible meditative experience happened, which I record in the book. I have never done it in writing before or since, so readers will get as close to what actually happened that night as possible. And I received, for perhaps the first time I can remember, a huge load. Yeah, it's not me.
No, I got it taken care of.
Anyway, that download was particularly moving to me and really opened me up. Here I am, a scientist, a statistician. I deal in facts, figures, whatever I can measure. In fact, my PhD is in advanced measurement systems. So I was a little like Nell in the movie Contact. I'd had this non-technical experience that was very overwhelming, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. So I went and talked to some experts who were luckily there, and they said, "Oh, Brooks, that's just a download." I said, "What's a download?" And she explained it to me, and Angelica Whitecliffe, a good friend, and she said, well, probably what's going to happen is you're going to go everywhere that you've planned to go when you're on this North Pole Inner Earth expedition, and the captain's going to turn to you and say, "Where to now, Dr. Agnew?" And you're going to know, because that's why the information was given to you. And I went, wow, that is really deep. So then Sunday rolls around. Monday morning I get on a plane. I fly back to Kentucky. I pick up the phone a couple of days later, and I call Rodney Clough, who's on the board of this expedition team. And he says, I don't know if we're going to go forward with this or not. I said, why, Rodney? What happened? He said, well, Stephen Curry died of brain cancer. I said, what? I just spoke to him in November. It's August. You mean he's dead? Yeah, he passed away very unexpectedly. He was the expedition leader. And without a leader, he said, I don't think we can go on. I just don't think we can do the expedition. And then he paused for a second. He said, would you serve as leader of the expedition? I said, call me back in an hour. So he called me back in an hour, and it was unanimous, a board decision. So I accepted. And that's when I realized that I'd been given the download a couple days before. So since then, of course, that was late 2006. It was impossible to raise the money to do an expedition in 2007. Stephen Curry's team had returned all the money to the tourists who had bought seats on the boat. There was about 12 or 13 of them. So we started over economically from ground zero. We started in 2007 to raise money to go in 2008. By the way, it's a $700,000 deposit on the boat the December before you leave. So, and there's only 100 spaces. So you put the numbers together, that's, $7,000 per person that you've got to raise. Well, we wanted scientists on the boat. We didn't want tourists. You know any scientists that have $7,000 laying around? Not. They picked up the sparrows. So we had to start looking for grant money. We had to start looking for investors. We had to pitch an angle of the expedition that economically would make sense without compromising the spirit of the mission. And that was, let's do a documentary to end all documentaries. Come on, this is the greatest expedition in the history of the world. We're going to the bloody surface of the moon here. We're going somewhere nobody has ever been by sea and lived to tell about it. So it was a great plan. It was a great story. And 2008 was the worst economy we had seen in about 50 years. So 2008 was out. We couldn't even raise money in 2008. So we started in 2009 to raise money for 2010. And it has been a real struggle. Now, to make matters worse, there are only 2 ships capable of making this expedition. One is called the Arctica, and the other is called the Sevmorput. Both of them are Russian ships, both with the same shipping company, former military vessels, now used in civilian expeditions. They will be retired at the end of 2012. So we are now shooting for, we wanted to do a 2011 and a 2012, but we're now shooting for July of 2012. This will be the last expedition of either of these ships ever, and it'll be the only opportunity to pull this off, making it the rarest Arctic expedition ever, and it will never be duplicated. So this is where we're at. We're pitching it. We're trying to raise the money to do it. It's $2 million to pull off the expedition. It's about another $2 to $3 million to get the film produced in such a way that it can be released as a documentary that makes sense to people. And there's room in there for a 13-piece miniseries, a reality show. You want to see what happens to people 15 days at sea with 120-foot seas, going through spiritual training every single day, like a conference at sea for 15 days. Yeah, it would be an amazing reality program.
Yep, that sounds like a good pitch. God, I hope this comes off. I would sure like to have a seat on the boat myself.
Tell me about it. So as far as referring to like books like Smoky God, which was written, what was it, 1920 something? I can't remember the exact date.
Yeah, I read the book.
Did you find anything that gives him credit that this was a real story, or is it, as people say, that he was just nuts?
Well, it's like a lot of stories that you read. There's the Smoky God, there's Edidorfa, there's the rumors of Admiral Byrd. I've looked at the actual mission of Admiral Byrd flying over the North Pole in 1926, the South Pole in 1929. Clearly an aviation hero, clearly a super patriot, served all the way through World War II, served in several efforts after World War II, and if the government asked him not to say anything about it, believe me, he never did.